What is up, my Squirtleites? It is I, your king, welcoming you to the June 2024 edition of Let's Talk, and welcome to the home stretch, everybody. Or at least for me, this whole entire year, I would say going back to the end of January, has been non-stop. Recording after recording after recording session, and I am so glad that I am about a week and a half away from being able to go back to a somewhat normal schedule. The worst part of it is that most of what I've been recording in that span has been stuff you guys won't see for a very long time, if not years. But thank goodness, things are finally winding down. This week is going to be really busy too. In fact, I'm kind of just squeezing this Let's Talk in here. So it's not going to actually be as long as I was hoping for it to be. I had some discussion topics lined up for this Let's Talk, but that's not going to happen because I got to get this thing out quick. I'm probably going to commute those topics to a different video or just save them for July's Let's Talk, and then things should be a bit more chill then, and I should be able to go over all those things then. So first things first, as we do with all these Let's Talks, let's talk about everything that I did in the last month. May was almost, I want to say about 95% of that was just Destiny. I recorded so much Destiny to get caught up before the final shape dropped. Had to record all of the seasonal content for Lightfall. I probably put together about 40 hours of footage, and then I would say another 15 to 20 hours of gameplay that didn't result in any footage but needed to be done because, well, Destiny quest design and progression requires that I go through that filler content. And when I'm doing that stuff on my main account where I'm getting loot drops and things that I'm genuinely interested in, it's fine. When I'm doing it on a Let's Play where I am not in the least bit interested in the drops that I get, and I'm just trying to show things for the sake of story progression and showing off certain bits of content and gameplay and things like that, then a lot of that stuff gets really aggravating. And it's not like it's worn me out on the game or anything, but I'm definitely tired of Let's Playing that game. And it's also, it's definitely got a lot to do with the fact that this is a year's worth of content that is meant to be experienced week over week over the course of 12 months. And I condensed all of that into 3 weeks of work. So that is definitely not the way you're supposed to play Destiny. I think I already said something similar last year when I was talking about how I recorded all the stuff leading up to Witch Queen, but still, same rule applies. It was exhausting going through all of that. But it's done now, and I'm happy to say that it's done. I spent the last week of the month mainly focusing on variety content. Did not have time to get to any Banjo-Kazooie. Unfortunately, that Let's Play still not finished just yet, but I'm hoping that will be changed this month once I can get back into the groove. In fact, that's my first priority, is once all this busyness comes to an end, is to finish Banjo-Kazooie before I start leaping into some of the new Let's Plays that will be coming out in a few months' time once all of the current stuff wraps up. So obviously, we had quite a few finales last month. Firewatch came to an end. That was a short and sweet Let's Play, but one that I had been meaning to do for years, and finally got a satisfying recording of that series. I actually recorded that one twice. Back-to-back days, actually. I recorded the entire game, I want to say on a Thursday or something like that, and I wasn't happy with how it turned out, so then literally the next day, I'm like, no, I just need to push through this, get this done, because if I procrastinate it, it'll never happen. And so the next day, I sat down and recorded the entire thing again, and that one went, I would say, almost perfectly, because I was able to show everything that I wanted in the game, all of the dialogue options I wanted, and I feel like the playthrough and my portrayal of the protagonist that I wanted to show off was perfect. And I still think that that is a beautiful, wonderful, wonderful game. Absolutely love it. One of the best games of its ilk that has ever been created, and it just was overall, I think, a very chill and nice experience, and a good introduction to summer. Big fan of that one. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came to an end as well. Looking back on that one, I'm a little bit regretful of how much focus I placed on the battle mode in that one. I think it just dragged on too long. I did want to go over every single course across Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and obviously that game's going to be an outlier because it is by far the most content-rich Mario Kart in the entire series. But I still think I probably could have toned it down a little bit. I think I should have done exactly half of what I did with the battle mode, because what was I doing? I think I did 8 rounds per game mode type, and I think if I had just done 4, I could have condensed. I could have made half as many episodes, and then it would have gone a little bit smoother. But overall, I mean, I guess it was a good showcase of those game modes in their entirety. That's probably my one big regret, because I feel like those videos in particular got a lot less engagement, and I understand why. Battle mode just isn't as interesting to watch through, especially when you're just seeing slight variations on the same theme across each game mode on the same maps in every single episode. But everything else about the Let's Play I think went great. I loved going through all of the cups. Only had I think I only lost or didn't get first on one course throughout the entire Let's Play on 150cc. And I mean, that's not saying that much because it's Mario Kart 8, but I'm also not like some competitive Mario Kart 8 player. I barely ever play it with friends. It's never been a game that's like been super high on my radar or anything. In fact, I've said this before, it's not my favorite Mario Kart, but just sitting down and playing through it, it actually went surprisingly well. And I was shocked to see how much I actually enjoyed it on that playthrough, despite my gripes that I still have and will always have with that game. I just want the option, man. Just give us the option to go single items instead of double items. It's the only thing that I can't get over with Mario Kart 8, and I wish that was a thing. But, you know, Nintendo and their design decisions, when they decide something, they really decide on that something. Pokemon White also came to an end, and this is kind of the last one I wanted to talk about because obviously it's a huge deal that Pokemon White is finally over after over a year of Let's Playing this game. It did take a little bit of a break in the middle, but otherwise, man, that was one hell of a Let's Play. I'm super proud of it, though. I do think it is right up there with Pokemon Emerald as the best Pokemon Let's Play I've ever done on the channel. I do think the post-game was a bit more just on the casual side. It was basically just a walkthrough and battling all the trainers along the way. It wasn't really supposed to be anything crazy, but I'm happy with the way that it turned out for the most part. There were a lot of technical issues behind the scenes that did make it a bit more difficult, and is also why, while with the sequel, Pokemon White 2, I do want to take a similar approach to that game. With the next couple of Pokemon Let's Plays, though, it's definitely going to be a lot more relaxed, a lot more casual, a lot more laid back, a lot more similar to some of my other Pokemon Let's Plays where I didn't go nearly in depth with the editing and whatnot. It's just going to be sort of a standard playthrough. And on that note, I should mention, because obviously this has been replaced by Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team, I think I've already said this before, but I just want to clarify for anybody curious. That is just going to be a Let's Play of the story, nothing else. I'm dedicating exactly one bonus video to the end game, just to kind of briefly go over it while talking about it without actually participating in any of it, because I will say this again, and I've said this many times in the past, I cannot stand that game's end game. It's not that it's bad, it is inherently just more of the same thing with Mystery Dungeon, but it is on such a broad scale that, and I'll say this, I just find the Mystery Dungeon gameplay loop, at least in the original Rescue Team, to be okay, but it's so, I don't know. There's something about it that just is so much more immediately tedious to me than your main series Pokemon game. And for an entire story, I can more or less tolerate that. I will actually say Rescue Team Director's Cut did push my limits a little bit more, just because it did require a bit more grinding than the original Game Boy Advance games did. I'm sure some people will contest me on that, but I certainly felt like I had to grind a lot more with this one in particular through the main story. And it's fine, but it does, I think by the end, I've had my fill of the game. You know what I mean? Like, once the credits roll, I'm good. I'm set. That end game, though, is like, it's like you finished the cherry and the whipped cream, and then you've suddenly realized that there is now an entire, like, 12-pound cake beneath that you have all to yourself that you're supposed to finish. And it's like, hold on a second. Hold on. I've bitten off way more than I can chew here. And that's why I want nothing to do with it, because then, first of all, it would like triple the Let's Play in size if I covered all of that. And second of all, I just don't have fun with that stuff. I don't have fun tackling dungeons that go to 100 floors. I think enough heartache with the last couple of dungeons in the main story. When I get into some of the even more egregious stuff, I'm just ready to commit. You know what I mean? It's way too much for me. So if you're expecting more than what you got with the original Game Boy Advance Let's Play, do not. It's going to be the story and then a single episode dedicated to the end game. That's it. Okay, so, and on that note, I guess we should say, that started obviously last month. Animal Crossing New Horizons started after Mario Kart 8 came to an end. I'm still gauging your guys' responses on that one, but, I mean, I've committed to it, so it's going to be a long one. I will say right now, I already have enough videos to get me through, I want to say November is my cutoff at the moment, but I still got a long way to go with this one. Like I said before, I have taken a complete break from the game for a couple of months now, and I'm probably going to get back to recording it in July, maybe even later than that, but we'll see. And then, of course, after Firewatch, back on Saturday, we have the start of Mario Party 3, continuing my playthrough of all the Mario Party games, the last of the Nintendo 64 games. We're probably not going to see Mario Party 4 this year if I keep to my current schedule, although So after Mario Party 3 is supposed to be Banjo-Kazooie, which I've already talked about before, and after that, I have another game planned, but if that one doesn't end up panning out, then it will be Mario Party 4. I'm still deciding on whether or not it's going to work out. We'll see. But if the next game does continue as planned, then yeah, Mario Party 4 won't be till next year, and then we'll start jumping into the GameCube ones. But eventually, like I said, we're going to get through all of the Mario Parties from 1 all the way up through the DS game, because that technically comes after 8, if I remember my chronology correctly. But yeah, it's 1 through 8 and the DS game. That's my intention with this Let's Play, is to cover all those. And I may take a look at a couple of the Switch ones, but I am absolutely not going to be looking at 9, 10, or any of the 3DS games. Yeah, so that pretty much covers all of that. Oh yeah, I guess there was the Destiny changeover from Shadowkeep to Beyond Light. Not anything super monumental. I'll just say this right now, and this is entirely for the sake of chronology, but Beyond Light, there's a lot to cover there that's super interesting, but the first several episodes of this campaign, I am of the personal belief, and I know it's not a super popular opinion in the Destiny community, but I'm of the personal belief that that is the worst campaign in Destiny history. Not that the expansion itself is the worst. It's actually a pretty good one, but none of it really comes to life until the campaign is done. That campaign is awful, because if there has ever been a steeper criticism of Destiny's rehashing and reusing the same areas over and over and over again ad nauseum and not giving you anything new to experience on a mission-to-mission basis, Beyond Light might be the worst offender. If you thought Shadowkeep did that poorly, and it does at times, but I also feel like it really makes use of the space it's in, because the whole thing takes place on the moon, right? Shadowkeep is a great example of how robust the actual locations in Destiny can be, because it really, truly utilizes the entirety of the moon in that campaign, from the missions itself all the way through to the nightmare hunts after the fact. And it's actually kind of impressive. I will say, they really do make the moon feel like the biggest location in all of Destiny. And honestly, it might be, or at least really close to it, but I don't think they've ever been able to properly utilize so much about the space that they're in, except for the Witch Queen campaign, which is obviously still to come. But Beyond Light is the exact antithesis of that, where it reuses like the same 3 locations over and over and over and over again, and never gets creative with it at all, aside from the filler stuff that you do in between, which unfortunately I do have to show because it's campaign adjacent. So Beyond Light is probably something that you can like tune out for like probably this entire month. If you're, I mean, I obviously, again, there are story beats in there, but I will say right now, the actual content this month is not interesting. July is where it starts to pick up a little bit more once you start to get into the post Beyond Light stuff, and then as we go even further down the road into covering the seasonal stuff, which is not going to be in depth again because I missed the boat on this one, and then the 30th anniversary pack and all of the other extra stuff that came after Beyond Light, that's where things really start to get interesting. And of course, this is all building up and leading into the best expansion, at least as of the time that I'm recording this video, in Destiny history. Obviously, that remains to be seen on Tuesday when this video goes out, if the final shape can measure up to it, but we will obviously see. All right, so yeah, that's all of the new stuff pretty much taken care of. There is obviously a new Spotlight game that's going to be coming out this month, going up on Friday. I'm actually going to be recording that tomorrow because I'm recording this on the 2nd. Just going to go through the entire thing. This is not nearly as much of a niche game as Pacific Drive. It's a bit more well-known. It's a bit more in the common gamer vernacular. It's also a much older game. It's, I want to say, what is it, like about 10 or 11 years old now. And it is not a game that was a failure by any means, but it is certainly a game that, from a commercial standpoint, did not do super good, but is still, I think, still sold like millions of copies, enough to be well known. It's just that it wasn't the hit that it was supposed to be. And I feel like most people really like this game too. So it's definitely something a lot less a lot less hidden, a lot less tailored to a specific audience than something like a Pacific Drive. It's more of a AAA game, if that makes sense. So it'll be interesting to see what you guys think of that. And technically, I do want to say this right now. I actually am hinting and actually giving away the answer as to what the Spotlight game is each month on the schedule. I did this last month. I'm doing this month. The little question mark black box over the Friday days where this goes up, that is technically not just a black box. That is actually the cover of the game that I'm going to be covering this month, just taken all the way down to like 6% opacity in Photoshop. So if you want to zoom in and actually really take a look at it, you can technically see what that game is, if you're at all curious. So go ahead and do that. But otherwise, yeah, I'm not going to really spoil it here. That's just something worth discussing and mentioning here. But yeah, we'll probably get into more of the like super well-known games, the games where people are going to go into the comments and just lambaste me for being like, how the hell have you never played this before? That's probably not going to happen until around September or October. I'm sort of easing into things with this whole idea, but I'm liking it so far. I'm again gauging interactions. I know, again, Pacific Drive wasn't for everybody, but I certainly loved it, and I will definitely be finishing that game in my own time. But what is going on this month? Okay, so the reason I am super busy this week is, one, because I got to get those Spotlight videos done tomorrow, but the rest of the week is dedicated to the release of the Final Shape for Destiny. And obviously, I am going to be playing that very heavily. I am hoping to get the entire campaign recorded Tuesday evening. That is entirely dependent on server load, and also if Bungie decided to make this campaign abnormally larger than their past ones. If I'm going off of the usual length of their last two, so Lightfall and Witch Queen, which is the standard that they are now held up against, it might be doable in one evening, but it's going to be tough. And then my plan is to turn right around and edit and record, and have that entire thing recorded and edited and put it up on the channel either Wednesday or Thursday, like right off the bat. It's not going to be commentated. It's going to be like how I put the Witch Queen campaign up on the channel a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago. Was it a couple of years ago? Yeah, it was. Oh my gosh. I can't believe Witch Queen was already 2 years, 2022. Wow. Holy crap. That's, time flies, man. That felt like it was only a year ago to me for some reason. Jeez. Well, that's what happens when one Destiny expansion cycle is abnormally longer than the others, and it just, I don't know, time flies. Anyway, gonna put the whole thing up, and I'm just gonna dump it on the channel. It's not going to be anything. I am going to like schedule them apart enough so that YouTube doesn't put them out in, doesn't upload them out of order, because that's the problem. Is if you make them all public at the same time, it will do that. That's not my intention. I am going to still meter them out just a little bit, but they're just going to go up when they go up, and they are not going to affect that day's upload. It's just going to go right up on the channel, and it's going to be something for people to watch, for people who don't want to pay the money to play it, who have no interest in playing it, period. All that stuff. I mean, that's the whole reason I do the Destiny Let's Play, is for people to experience it if they've never played it before, and this is an early look at the Final Shape campaign from a pure gameplay standpoint, and also from me experiencing it for the first time, so you get that more like green vanilla experience of it before we eventually, someday down the road, obviously, do the proper Let's Play version of it, but that'll be a couple of years out yet, I'm sure. But aside from that, I don't really have anything else crazy planned for this week. It's just the Final Shape, but that's going to be taking up so much of my time, especially with the raid coming out on Friday. I am going to be attempting to raid that with my friend group on the day of, so that's going to pretty much take up my entire weekend. And yeah, I'm just going to be super busy with that. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the following week, I am going to be slammed again with finishing a couple of outstanding things, some variety stuff, some Banjo-Kazooie. I want to get that finally done. And then there's a couple other things I need to just wrap up with all of the current Let's Plays before I'm ready to just finally go, okay, I can take a break now. Only have to record things on like either just weekends, or I can just pick 2 days a week and solely use those for recording. I don't need to be recording things 5-6 days a week like I've been doing for the past 5 months. I'm ready to be done with that. Holy crap. Thank goodness. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm aiming to get all this done by, is Wednesday the 12th. It's been a lot, guys. It's been a lot. I guess there's one other thing I should mention, though. So last month, I put out a video called The Great Surrender of the AAA Industry. I think I just called it The Surrender of the AAA. Yeah, Surrender of the AAA Video Game Industry. I'm looking at it right now. Can't believe I don't even remember what I titled it. And This video got a great response. Was very happy to see it. A lot of people obviously came flocking to the video for various different reasons. It is a bit reactionary, and those are things I generally do not like to do on this channel, even though I know that they are better for the algorithm. And, you know, I mean, I feel like a lot of people are on the same page, but I also feel like a dangerous number of people just, you know, way too many people are apathetic to it at this point. I mean, that's really just a general problem, right? Is everybody's just kind of apathetic to how often things just suck. I mean, people think that this is just what growing up is like, is that you just realize that nothing is the fairy tale that you want it to be and everything just sucks, and we can all be nihilists about everything. But you know what? I'm no nihilist. In fact, I love video games. I really, really do. Despite my demeanor in that video, and I tried to emphasize that in the video, I love video games. I have a great passion for them. I think they're a wonderful medium. But the industry, the actual big budget industry around it, so what Hollywood is to movies, I'm talking that side of the game industry to video games. I'm a nihilist about that because I do not think there is anything they can do to improve at this point, and they have no incentive to and never will. The only time that they ever do anything consumer-friendly is when they are left with no other option. That is it. It is past cynicism at this point. I have zero faith in the AAA game industry and lost that faith years and years and years ago. I would say I was a cynic as early as 2012. I would say I have been a nihilist since 2017 or 18 about, and I think that this industry is unsalvageable. I really, really do. There are exceptions, obviously. We look at the indie scene. We look at certain sections of the more, I guess, quality-focused side of the game industry. Like, for all of my ragging on Nintendo, I do have endless respect for them, and they're at least on the side that they genuinely are out there trying to make good games and not for cynical reasons. They approach video games from the perspective of a toy manufacturer and not a tech company. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing either, because toy manufacturers themselves are also very ruthless, monolithic beasts that have been manipulating children for decades and decades now, and Nintendo is no better than them. But when it comes to the actual quality of video games, when it comes to the actual medium of video games themselves, Nintendo treats it with a lot more respect than most of the rest of the industry. My real only huge issue with them in that department is preservation. So there are aspects there that are doing things right, and I think that the sides of the industry that are treating those aspects correctly are they're destined to succeed long into the future. They're destined to continue to have the pull and to have the name brand and to have the strength to continue if everything else were to fail, for instance, if a crash were ever to actually happen. And that is there, but what my point of the video is that with the approach that the game industry is taking, the AAA side deserves a crash. It deserves to go down into flames, and we deserve, I think everybody deserves to see video games kind of have to claw back on their own merits again, which they are 100% capable of doing. I just don't think that a lot of people have faith in that because they don't see the better side of video games. They see only the destitute, the bad, and they think that that's as good as it gets. I mean, it to this day boggles my mind that people look at the yearly AAA slop from things like Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty, FIFA, NBA 2K, Madden, all of these giant series that are, you know, these monoliths just because of how much money they make on an annual basis, and they genuinely think that's the best that video games have to offer because they sell the best, therefore they are the best. A lot of people think that way, and that needs to die. That needs to go. If the video game industry, in the eyes of those people, truly does go the way of the video game industry in the early 80s with Atari, I'm okay with that at this point. But I do think that there is another side of games that will always continue to survive no matter what. I think companies like Nintendo and Devolver, who I am not saying are perfect, I will never say that a corporation is perfect, they at least have the tools and they have the knowledge and the foresight to weather a storm like that because they do things so much more intelligently. They don't do things with ever-increasing profits in mind and nothing but, you know, the interest of shareholders. Like, obviously, they are still a capitalist business. They are still corporations. They do still care about profit. But if something were to happen, they at least have a plan in place. I feel confident that they have a plan. I do not feel confident that the likes of Microsoft, Sony, Electronic Arts, Ubisoft do have a plan. I feel like if they were ever to suddenly start seeing their sales tank so hard that the entire business just doesn't seem feasible anymore, they would jump ship. And I say all of this because we are about to get into Summer Games Fest, and technically it's already started. There have been trailers and reveals a little bit, but the actual showcases are this coming weekend. And this is the time where the game industry is going to make a response, or a lack of a response, which is still a response. And of course, this is still all in relation to the fallout from Tango Gameworks, Arcane Austin, all that stuff, but also a lot of the other studio closures that have been going on for years now. All eyes are on this. Even if you're not necessarily looking forward to that, you might be looking forward to game reveals and whatnot. This is still an important thing that we need to see addressed. And if they just hand wave it away or make like a canned statement at the beginning and then just move on to game releases and say, well, this is a week about video games and blah, 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 blah. That is a response, okay? That's important to note. It's important to remember the chicken shits that stand up there in suits and refuse to give actual responses to things and give total non-responses. That is still saying something to you, okay? That's still important, all right? We're going to pay attention. And if dependent on this response, unless it is an absolutely perfect response, which I know we're not going to get, I'm probably going to make a follow-up video to the Surrender video to just kind of hammer this home a little bit more and to discuss it a little bit more, because I'm not trying to take away from people's enjoyment of video games, because I too enjoy video games, but I think it's time we realize just the state that this is all in and how unsustainable this all is, and we need to be bracing for the inevitable. And I think having a healthy perspective on video games and pulling away from this pre-order culture and what's always the next big thing, it's time to start doing that, guys. It really is, because I'm not trying to fearmonger, because I don't have a premonition behind me. I'm not that kind of person, but eventually it gets to a point where people just can't afford this stuff anymore. Like, that's just the reality. Like, eventually there's not enough money, and this whole culture of people just don't make money, don't make more money, just continue to buy things, but don't make more money. No, you don't deserve more money, but you do deserve to buy our products. As long as that mentality continues, eventually this all has to crash and burn, right? It has to, unless we fix this somehow. It all has to crash and burn, and when that happens, if we're all still stuck in the mindset of, well, only the next new game is what matters, that's an extremely unhealthy mindset to have. There are so many video games, guys. There are so many, and I know everybody who's listening to this or has watched any video of mine has not played them all. I know y'all haven't. Branch out. Go see other things. This is the perfect time to do so. I mean, it's incredible how much access you have that I don't think anybody realizes that they have right now. There is so much in the way of gaming experiences that you can go and have for yourself right now that I bet you never realized you could have. And this is going to be, I think, a good time to talk about that. So I think that's what the follow-up video is more so going to be about, if I make it. Again, these videos are sort of off the cuff. I mean, I come up with an idea, or I hear some talking points about things, and then I just want to put my own spin on it. And I usually just go home that night, type the whole script up, and then I just make the video. And I was doing it, I'll be completely honest, I was totally doing it in the same style as if you remember Total Biscuit, may he rest in peace, he used to have these discussion videos back in the day where he like, the title of the video was literally, I am now going to talk about X topic in X amount of minutes. And that was it. And I still go back to those videos sometimes because I think the points in them are so salient to this day. Not all of them. Some of them are definitely a little bit more of the time, but a lot of them still hold up to this day. And I love that format because I do think that it is an excellent way to spark discussion. I think it's a really good way of getting across certain points and then leaving it open enough for people to talk in the comments while still going into great detail about things. Because, yeah, it is rambling in a sense, but it's very controlled rambling. You know what I mean? And rambling is, I think, important. I mean, why are podcasts so popular? That's all it is someone turning on a mic and rambling for X amount of minutes or hours. And this is the same idea, but it gives people a platform with which to kind of fire back with their own answers and to take certain parts and pick it apart and go over those things, while the person that is making the video themselves can go into detail on all the things that they want to cover. And I mean, really, my surrender of the AAA video game industry was something I could have gotten across in 5 minutes if I wanted to, but I had to spread a lot of those points out so that I could reinforce them. You know what I mean? I didn't want to just say something that could easily backfire if I didn't properly explain what I meant by saying it. So it's controlled rambling, it's scripted rambling, but it is still rambling nonetheless. And I do like that format. I'm a big fan of that in the interest of game discussion, much more so than something like a Let's Talk where I just sit down, turn on a mic, and talk this way. It's why I don't actually generally do a lot of game discussion, or I guess game industry discussion topics in these Let's Talks, because this is not my preferred way of discussing them. But did want to go over it for a minute so you guys would know what to expect whenever I get around to doing a follow-up video to that. So that's something to look for possibly this month. I will say I'm not going to do it instantly after this weekend because that is a bad time to react to these things. I will say that right now. Generally, June is always interesting because even though E3 doesn't exist, all this E3 adjacent stuff still falls in the same camp, okay? It still plays the same role. And usually the week after the showcases is just games discussion, and people will have their reactionary takes and their articles and their think pieces and all that sort of stuff, but that is a bad time to react to this stuff. The best time to react is about 3 to 4 weeks later, because the end of June is... I don't actually know if it's like the beginning or end of like a fiscal, like a quarter or something like that in business or whatnot, but almost without fail, around the end of June and within the first week or so of July is when you start to see the actual fallout of the decisions made at these press conferences and up on the stages of whatever's going on in these first 2 weeks of June. Because that's by that point, the shareholders and the board members have all had their reactions go through, and they've all decided to make their decisions. And this is when you start to see, this is like primo time for CEO layoffs, if they happen, okay? So this is where I think it's going to be important to watch out for these sorts of things, to see what really happens with the leadership in these companies, because generally it takes a few weeks for these decisions to sort of trickle down. So that's probably when I'm looking to make a video like this a lot more. I don't think I will be making this like the next week because whatever. I mean, as far as like actually watching the showcases, I don't even do that thing anymore. I usually just kind of... what I like to do is I just subscribe to the YouTube channels for a couple of weeks, and then I'll just wait for the trailers to come out and then just watch them individually based on what interests me. That's it. Watching the PR think pieces anymore, it's just not the same as it was, first of all, anymore. It's got not nearly enough of the same charm. I think the only showcase, quote-unquote, you can still get me to sit down and actually watch from start to finish is a Nintendo Direct. And that I don't even think that's happening this weekend. I think that's not happening until maybe the end of month. At least it's what it's rumored, but we'll see. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to give it time. I'm not going to do it immediately. But aside from that, the rest of June and July is important to talk about really quickly because... So I guess I'll talk about this more in July, but at the very end of July and for about half of August, I'm going on a vacation, and I'm not going to be around for a long time. So that's going to throw a little bit of a wrench in my schedule. So there's a certain X amount of things I need to get done before that trip happens. And this is going to be the start of it. I'm going to be working mainly on... I mean, I already talked about the things I'm going to finish in a kind of a crunch period next week. But for the rest of the month, it's probably going to be the new Pokemon game after the fact. And possibly the series after Banjo-Kazooie, if not that. But also certainly wrapping up all of my Destiny stuff and planning for Eco, which I talked about this in a previous Let's Talk, is going to be the in-between Let's Play after Beyond Light is done, but before Witch Queen starts. And it's going to get kind of the premier focus on the channel, but I am doing I'm putting a lot of effort into planning that one in particular so that it turns out exactly the way that I want it to, because that game deserves... It deserves the time and the respect that I'm going to give it. It's not going to be just something that I throw together willy-nilly and we'll see how it turns out because, yeah, I've put off that game long enough. I need to give it the respect that it deserves. I really do. And I think aside from that, probably towards the end, I'll start getting back into Animal Crossing videos and putting a bunch of those together, seeing if I can, start to actually work on the end of that Let's Play, or at least getting towards the end of that Let's Play, although that's still going to be a ways out. And then just once all of that is done, I should be good to go, and I'll probably be gone for most of August. I'll have to pre-record that month's Let's Talk and Spotlight stuff like a lot more in advance than I normally do. But aside from that, yeah, that's pretty much how the rest of the summer is going to look. I'll have things to talk about in July, certainly. I'm actually going to probably spend most of that video talking about games. either that have already come out or are upcoming that I want to have a little bit of a discussion on. A lot of current modern stuff, and then we'll just obviously run over the schedule as we always do. But yeah, that was actually a lot more to talk about than I was expecting to. Man, this always happens with these Let's Talks. They always get away from me, and this is why I like to script things when I have the opportunity. But at least I had a lot to talk about. At least it was a lot of worthwhile stuff, and I hope you all enjoyed the usual Destiny gameplay in the background. Thank you all so very much for watching, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this one very, very much, and I will see you all in the next one.